first of all, Neil, thank you so much for taking the time out. And after the technical difficulties that will just stay between us, we're finally able to do this, all right? So, if you don't mind, it's a really basic, boring question, but why did you get started in martial arts?
I did it to originally just East Extension. I got out of the military and I went straight into the government, and what I was doing wasn't very fulfilling as I thought it would be. I mean, the training was very fulfilling, but the job itself was very annoying. So I wanted to just learn some more skills, and when I started doing it just to learn, I found it to be very satisfying. I had a lot of fun because you get to fight, and then there's not a lot of repercussions. It's over. You go home. So I felt like it was good for me mentally. I just felt great. And then I got a little addicted to it. And the sport is so complicated, it's very hard to say, yeah, I figured it out, move on. You never really figure it out. You just get chunks of it. So the challenge of the sport never went away, and that kind of piqued my interest.
Yeah. Well, this is a big thing now, especially in the grappling world. Mission 22 in the US, and then reorg over here in the UK, where a lot of guys who are in the military are going into grappling now, and it's really helping them. It's like way better than most of the therapy and going to see a psychiatrist, I think, right?
Oh yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah,
you know, for military guys, because you can kind of bond if you're on a good team. You can kind of get a little bit of that bonding with a fight team or something that you would get in a military unit. It's not the same. It's not as strong, but it's still that feeling, and you know, just training with the guys, getting after it, and having some fun.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that's missing a lot. There is no camaraderie, and it's that experience, that shared experience, that really works, right? So, was it grappling that you initially went straight into, or did you do anything else before that?
I dabbled in some things like knife fighting and stuff, but that was kind of bad for me because I just kind of foresee myself getting in some trouble. You know, when you train it all the time, you want to do it. And, you know, I went from a guy just having a pocket knife to having 3 knives on me all the time. And my mind is always ready to engage. So I was like, you know what, someone's going to do something wrong. I'm going to snap. I'm going to stab them, and then I'm going to go to jail. So let's just cut it. So after that, I just kind of got into shoot fighting. And that's kind of where I was like, well, I liked it better. I felt like it was better fit for me. The problem with a lot of those deadly sports, like knife fighting type stuff, is you never get to really do it unless your life's on the line. So,
yeah.
Token, it's kind of nice to know, but at the same token, if you're thinking about it and training it all the time, and somebody like pushes you in a bar or things get heated, you're probably going to react before thinking, and then you're going to be explaining yourself to someone's family and to a judge. So I wanted to do something that was a little better, that doesn't put guys away for life, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's where martial arts. Luckily, since the UFC, we don't have any of this karate would be kung fu, and you know, there's always the guy who truly believes in his art, and he's a street fighter, and you always ask him, so how do you train for that? How do you spar for that? It's like the airbag in your car. You know what I mean? It only ever really works once. You know what I mean? And then you're in deep shit. Right. So, if you don't mind me asking you, right? You're one of the only people, when I was doing my research on you, that you're at the highest level in the military, you're in the air marshals as well, and you've worked with the highest levels in MMA. And normally you'll get a guy who, if he's lucky and he's not a BS merchant, he's worked in one of them. But to work in both of those worlds, I'd like your ideas on why a lot of these guys are trying to use MMA as a framework for their basic training. What's your views on that?
I think the military now is utilizing a lot of the combat systems, like the Marine has theirs, the Army, stuff like that. they're just trying to make soldiers and Marines better. And I think it's a good thing. And I think it's a good way for guys like that to be able to express themselves and, you know, not hurting anybody, you know, in a sense, meaning like they come back from serving overseas or before they go there, they kind of get that feeling, work out some of the kinks. And I think it's a great idea. The more you know, the better things are. You know, it's an important skill.
Yeah, well, I you know, when you go on YouTube and you see the combat competitions in the army, especially now, you look at it and you go, wow, you know, those guys really can move now. They look the part, and you know, I only wish that the police would take more of it, especially in the UK, because they're woefully undertrained. But if you don't mind, just going to move on a little bit. I was going through your resume in the grappling arts, right, and I don't think there's a system that I've looked at that you haven't trained in or studied in. And right now in MMA, it's very BJJ centric. You know, it's BJJ. Every now and again, like Joe Rogan will deviate and talk about 10th Planet, but 9 times out of 10, it's BJJ. And I look at some of the guys that you've trained with, like Gene LeBell, Gokor, and Karo Parisyan, and I think they're overlooked in MMA. You know, and not just them. What's your views on that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that style is not for everybody. A lot of guys like the gi, and it depends. Like hobbyists, they don't want to. Hobbyists want to go train and then go home, go to work the next day, and just have fun. But when you're trying to break through to that higher level and you want to be a professional, you want to go hard. You want to prepare yourself. You want to build your confidence. You got to understand the speed in which application is supposed to be done, the timing. There's so many elements. And for me, out of all the schools I went to, I felt like Hayastan was like more of a proving ground too. They went really hard. They didn't really take much for weakness, and they had no problem telling you the hard truths that no other coaches would tell you. Or other people will kind of candy ass you a little bit and say, oh, you're doing pretty good, even though you're struggling, you know, and that's just part of good business. But I understand, those guys tried to tell me to quit so many times. They said, you'll never be good at this. You should quit. You got a good job, like all these other things. I was like, can I keep paying and showing up? And eventually I got better. But, you know, those guys had a wholly different pace and mentality. You know, I learned how to get out of leg locks by a guy kept trying to break my ankle. That's how I learned, you know. So it's not many people want to learn that way. But for me, I think that was what appealed to me, because I was like, I want to learn. I want to be one of these animals, and because they don't seem afraid of shit. And I got a real good lesson there. It was a great training place for me. I don't know what it's like now. I haven't been there in a long time, but I'm assuming that they still are pretty tough there.
Yeah, Armenians only get worse with age. They don't get mellow. They're not like Grandpa out of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They just become more aggressive, more grumpy. I used to read a lot about Gene LeBell, Gokor, Hayastan, when that wasn't a cool thing. What those guys were doing then, the hybrid of the arts, that wasn't cool when they first started out. That was heresy, especially in the martial arts press. I remember it well. I mentioned Karo Parisyan, right? And he was the first guy I saw to really use judo, I thought, especially in the UFC. When he was on the way up there, he was unbelievable. And now I don't see so much judo, especially in MMA. And now with Ronda Rousey going as well, do you reckon there'll be a resurgence of that, of judo?
The problem is usually just kind of like wrestling. When you see it's very strange to see a high level wrestler in MMA. And the same with judo. It's just because when they're in their field, they're very content in their field. Not everybody wants to cross over. I mean, there's not a lot of super high level wrestling champions that come over to MMA. It happens, but most of them stay in their world. They like their world. It's very challenging for them, and they like it. And they're successful, they're making money. You know, so a lot of times it's the guys with the wrestling styles and different stuff that is a little choppy and violent. They tend to dwell over to MMA really well because they already got the mentality. They're not like necessarily technical wizards. They're more like brutes, and that kind of goes along with the sport. You know, to have beautiful technique in judo is a lifetime, and then when you're looking at the Olympic level, that's even harder. So not many people are going to stop doing that and then come over to MMA for a second career. I think most of them would stick with that and then retire and they live in their world. So I would like to see more transitions of it because I think it would be great. But people got to understand Karo is very unique. Like, you know, I know he learned from Gokor and I know he learned from Gene, but he also figured things out himself too. And he had a nice style of no-gi judo that a lot of people can't do. And he had a great feel. He was just ridiculously talented. And I use Karo as a story to a lot of people where sometimes talent's a curse because things came really easy to him. He didn't have to, you know, he's a guy that smoked a couple cigarettes before the fight and still won. You know, like he's that guy. You know, he was just a tough kid that was very confident and, yeah, he's just so talented. You know, he didn't really have to work hard to, like, get ready for a fight. He'd go in there a little overweight, you know, and not caring, gambling the whole week he's at the UFC, and go out there and beat a guy. So why wouldn't he think he could get away with pushing it and pushing it? And, you know, the game got better and better, and then he had some personal tragedies. So it just... yeah, like when he broke onto the MMA scene as far as UFC, he was already around for a while.
Yeah.
You could see it. You could just see that this kid was something different. And yeah, he was. I don't think we're gonna see too many like that. There's only a handful of guys, and they have very similar qualities. Like BJ Penn, like the guy that is known not for training very much and whatever, but he was just a great fighter. You know, some guys are just like that. You know.
You see, I've always looked at Karo Parisyan, and I thought he was a little bit too ahead of his time. He was probably 5 years too early getting on. It's the thing with a lot of prodigies. It's only afterwards that you look back with hindsight and you just go, God Almighty, that guy. Yeah, he you know, he should have been born 5 years later. You know, it's interesting you said this because do you remember when Coleman and Kerr came into the UFC, and then that was when I think it was the first time that people started questioning BJJ, you know, because they were literally like smashing machines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What was it like when were you watching that era at the time?
Yeah, I've been a fight fan for a long time.
Right.
I kind of like the old breed a little bit. You know, there was a lot of those guys that fought back then, they fought just because they're competitors. They like to fight. And nowadays, being a coach, I can tell you there's a lot of guys that are mainly fighting for either the fame or the lifestyle or in some cases just for the money. But it's, you know, the guys that just want to fight, I mean, they're born fighters. You know, those guys, they're not very flashy necessarily. They're just gritty, you know, and they're tough. And they're going to fight whether making money doing it or not. And I feel like the older generation was kind of like that. They were more real deals. Not to knock the new kids, but they're different. The new kids are very talented. They're very gifted. Their knowledge and IQ is very high. But they don't necessarily have the grit that some of the old timers had. Some of them do. Some of them do. Don't. I'm not putting anyone down. There's definitely some grit.
No, it's funny you said that because it's like they're coming from a different place now with their training. I've used this example a few times. I can never imagine Gerard Gordeau wearing Versace. You know, when you see Conor McGregor, like some of the stuff the guy wears, he looks like a pimp. And then you look at some of those old boys in the UFC. Like look at Don Fry. You know,
Exactly.
Don Fry had a moustache that makes yours. Like, that's an impressive moustache. he had something going on. Right. Mentioned Ronda Rousey earlier, right? What's your take on her going into the WWE? Do you think she'll ever come back to MMA?
I don't know. Like, I keep good contact with her husband, Travis, because I used to train him.
Yeah.
And I know they're pretty set on having kids pretty soon, but I don't know when. Travis loves being a dad. Being a father to him is the greatest thing in the world. He loves being a dad. So having kids is a big part of something I know he wants to have. And she's got to do it when the time is right. But she may come back. Who knows? If she gets a hair up her ass and wants to fight, I'm sure she'll do it.
Well, while we're talking about the wrestling, just for a second, Lesnar's talking about coming back, and he was training with a good friend of mine, Eric Paulson, before he got in, and he was working quite a lot of the catch wrestling, which I personally think is that's just horrible. Like, if you want to talk about effective grappling, catch cam wrestling is something else, right? Who did you train with, or how did you get into the catch wrestling?
Well, I started off in shoot fighting, and I kind of classify shoot fighting as Japanese catch wrestling. I don't know if that's an accurate picture of it, but for me it is. And so then the easiest thing for me to shift over when I learned the Hayastan system, because Hayastan is catch wrestling too. And in a weird way, Hayastan was the old times and the future, because things are just coming around in circles anyways. Yeah. When I first started, all I knew was leg locks. And I would have to compete in advanced tournaments because they would only allow leg locks in advance, even though I'd only been grappling a year or two. So now leg locks are very popular. It's come full circle. I remember getting kicked out of gyms. People did not like the fact that I was going out and, beating their guys with leg locks. They thought I was just, taking cheap shots or something. But I was like, I don't know anything else. Like, at the time, it was just, I was doing my best. So now it's so widespread, and they're doing some pretty cool things with it. They're making it their own. And I like to see the sport grow, because the more minds working on something, the more ideas and more possibilities are grown. So some guys get like, I don't want to say jealous, but they want to keep things to themselves. But the sport is not one for one person; it's for everyone.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's grappling has its fads too. But I like the catch wrestling. To me, it makes more sense, and I think it carries over to MMA really nice. But there are no pins in grappling, so there's a lot of the tactics in catch wrestling don't necessarily matter so much, and it's very hard to find true catch wrestling anymore. All the greats are on their way out, so you're getting this kind of watered down version that you're not really understanding how technical it is. You just mainly get these wrestlers, they don't identify with jiu-jitsu, so they become catch wrestlers. But they don't really know, unless you've trained with a real good catch wrestler, you'd be surprised, like, the different level of knowledge. So I think that catch wrestling is some people will keep it alive, but I think jiu-jitsu and catch is starting to end a little now. And we'll see what happens, but there's so many different styles and they all work, so it's hard to point a finger at what's his best. I just found the style that fit my personality. It's gritty, it's mean, it has a bunch of shortcuts, and it has a bunch of other things, and I like it. I don't mind having it done to me either. It's like, it's just for me.